Hey guys, welcome to another session of Epic 7. This is my initial thoughts video for Zahhak. So Zahhak is an aesthetically well-designed hero, and I think that, Smaugy keeps upping the bar there in terms of the character design, but I think it could be just the kind of the oriental nature of this these batch of heroes, that their designs are looking kind of nice, very clean. Now originally, again, I was assuming that this is MLK Ron. A lot of people were thinking about that as well. He's not his own standalone character, and as many had told me, which I'm not there yet, many had told me that he's the chapter 1 boss, or at least you face him once. So he's an Earth Warrior, just like he was in the game there. He's a Sagittarius, now that's being revealed. Sagittarius is not a very familiar warrior star sign compared to like Libras and stuff like that, and Cancers and stuff. So Sagittarius, just a quick introduction, is shared with Ice Chloe, and I do believe Soul Bad Guy is the same, but I don't know if Soul Bad Guy had stat readjustment. So when Soul Bad Guy was released, he had totally different stat line in terms of a Sagittarius 5-star warrior. I don't know if they readjusted him to be like Zahhak and Chloe here, but regardless, we see the stat line there. He honestly looks like a warrior, looks like a thief. This is a very thief-like stat line, so really good speed. This is faster than Leo thieves, lower attack, comparable health and defense, still slightly higher because of a warrior, but very comparable. And then the crit rate is also 4% higher than, let's say, Green Vildred, Arbiter Vildred. But overall, it had that same vibe. Imprint concentration is 18% attack. 18% attack of the 1177 is not low at all. So I definitely don't think you should chase him. I don't know if his kit requires you to be at max imprint right away. Don't go too crazy, guys, just in case there are limited heroes. And actually, no, while I'm making the video, we already know that Fairy Tail Tenebria or Tenebria is coming down the line as a returning limited hero. That's a commentary in and of itself, but she is returning. So if you are missing her, don't go too crazy on this. Like I said, I'm not convinced that the attack there is going to be too crazy for him, especially he gets so many free stats when we talk about his kit. So 27 crit rate, 119 speed. I think those are the big things for him right now. And again, higher defense health ratio than a thief, but it's not as high as, again, comparing to like Libra warriors, which have like 6,000 health, 600 defense or something like that. So just keep that in mind. Skill 3, Execute. So attacks the enemy inflicting injuries, so injury hero, before granting the caster invincibility for 1 turn. Increases hit chance and critical hit chance by 50% when attacking. The severity of the injuries increases proportional to damage dealt, and injuries decrease max health of the target up to 35% every time the skill is used. So one thing that is not like noted extra, since like we're now familiar with how the injury mechanic works, injury mechanic does cap at 50% of that hero's health. So just keep that in mind in terms of like the potential of this. So you're doing it 35% every time, so 2 times they're already over 50%. So by the second S3, you're not benefiting much from the the injury itself. You're benefiting mainly from the damage that this will do and the invincibility buff that he does. So those things are important to keep in mind. Of course, right away you see hit chance is increased by 50%, critical hit chance 50%. The hit chance there is kind of like, you roll your eyes at this point, because like this is it, right? Smilegate over buffs a hero, can't nerf, and now they have to course correct, and basically that's aiming at Violet, right? So Violet would have was it 55% chance to dodge. So if you have a 50% chance to hit, he has a 5% chance to dodge you still, but very unlikely. So in terms of this, it's like, it's like, oh, Violet counters are must pull. I personally, like, I think that this skill has more utility than that one-dimensional thought of, oh, it's a Violet counter. Violet, I don't believe, is just as strong anymore. There's too many things happening. We're not just talking about characters that can increase the hit chance. There's just, I don't want to talk about it. It's not important. If you follow my train of thought throughout my videos, you will know why he's just not that effective anymore. He's still good, he's just not that effective. I think he's where he needs to be. I personally haven't had an issue with Violet in a really long time, and I don't own anyone that has increased hit chance in terms of like Briar Witch Assyria. I didn't build Wanda, whatnot, so this is not an issue. The hit chance I want to point out here though is that he can't really be blind. So if someone has a hit debuff on him or blind debuff, I think this cancels out based on just the reading of this. So hit debuff is a 50% chance for them not to be, well, 50% chance of them to miss. So basically you can think about it this way, that he basically has a passive skill on this skill itself that he's not affected by blind. So that's something that I think that upsells his value. It's not the fact that he can counter Violet. So I'm just looking at it from a more broad perspective. The critical hit rate is mentioned in the video as well, as the voiceover commentator is basically saying that, oh, it will make him really easy to gear, and I 100% agree. I think this is one thing that will really sway me to thinking that Zahhak is a really good hero, is that you get free stats, and this is not linked to his S2 or is not linked to a passive or unusable skill. This is straight in the skill itself. So in terms of like Archdemon's Shadow cannot seal it, so he'll still benefit from the crit rate no matter what. As long as he's attacking, he's getting it. And I think this design is there on purpose. Like, they're not putting it into some passive on the S2, no conditions whatsoever. It's just straight up stat buff. This is definitely one way to slow down the overpower creeping meta, because stats, arguably you can say that, oh yeah, stats are huge, right? It would make him really strong, but stats, especially percentage based stats, are still scaled off of base stats. So even if you are saving 50% crit here, and his, let's say his health is not super high, it's not 6,000, it's not 600 defense, you're not gonna be like really making him OP by giving him 50% of that crit rate into health, 50% of that into defense. Yes, he's gonna benefit from it. It's not as crazy. So this is one way for Smilegate to kind of, I feel, at least from a design, like game design perspective, to balance or slow down the power creep while still allowing this character to be good right off the bat. So invincibility for one turn has proven to me, at least from my perspective, from Strays himself, to proven to be pretty invaluable. So I'm definitely not gonna, think that's bad at all. Especially, again, he has a relatively low health and defense, so that invincibility for one turn, it really keeps him on this cycle that he's going to be a threat because of his injury. Now note his cooldown there. That's 4 turn cooldown -1. That's 3 turn cooldown. That's a very quick S3. It's a very quick S3 no matter how you cut it. So I personally think that this is going to be a pretty scary skill. Mort's issue is that even though his injury S3 is AoE, it's a 5 turn cooldown. I think it's 6 turns and then -1 5 turn. I think so. I think it's 1 turn longer than the usual. Well, what I'll say 4 turn is like the average. Although he does AoE and he does 20%. But 30% is 35% injury is huge, and it doesn't take too much damage to get to 35. But I don't think he's gonna have that issue with a base 27% crit plus 50% on this skill itself. You're only missing 23% crit rate for 100% crit. So looking for crit rate in his gear won't have to be a really high requirement. I'm not even sure if penetration set is very important on him, since I feel like his utility is that S3 bursting down heroes that require either HP scaling. So Apocalypse Ravi, Bellion, this is a very strong skill into them, plus you have that invincibility for 1 turn. So with that high base speed, that 119 base speed as we saw there, I think overall his S3, everything is really funneled on his S3. I think that's his biggest thing, but his other skills also don't disappoint to me. There is a 30% raw damage, so on average, pretty much average skill. We will have to see the data mine. I'm not expecting some great multipliers here in terms of like I'm lowering my expectations. If it is good, that's great. If it's not that good, I think that's fine too. Again, it's not too difficult to get to 35% of that max health in terms of the injury, so setting it off. So to do that, you basically need to do 35% of that hero's HP by the at the end of the hit. So if it's like a really bulky hero, then yeah, you will have to like scale up that HP. But if it's not super bulky and you can output that damage, then it's pretty easy. So again, using just really quick math here, you only need to do 3,500 damage for a 10,000 HP hero, and then double that for a 20,000 HP hero, and so on and so forth. So yeah, you know what? Maybe pen set could be valuable here. So this is just a preview of them hitting Violet. Of course, they have to hit Violet here, of course. But you can see that 35% is a huge chunk. And if you have experienced World Arena in the last season, Ambition season, you would know how effective injury is in general. I'm a huge proponent in pushing injury set, and a lot of people are thinking that, well, that's MLM and stuff like that. But I just feel that injury is very, very strong, and again, initially a 35%, that's pretty huge. So like 35% of that, if you can do that damage into like an A Robbie, she's gonna be very, very handicapped like in turn 1, and again, you'll most likely outspeed her depending on what your set is, but you'll most likely be outspeeding her. Just the question is like, can you do the damage? So just to keep that in mind. And I do think that's his selling point of his artifact. We'll be talking about that in a bit. So S2 is an elaborate plan. So it dispels 2 debuffs from an ally and the caster before granting barrier for 2 turns. Increase combat radius of the caster by 50%. So this is going to be very, very good for that play that I was just talking about with his artifact. Like maybe you want to get the S2 up and then go an S3 into a like an A Robbie or a Bellion or something like that. Because his artifact will grant him speed buff and will grant him a 30% critical hit damage on the next hit. So like maybe that's what he needs on his S3. So I'm not quite sure like what to expect on the S3 mods here. I'm hoping that it'll be high enough that he'll be used like right from the start, and he wouldn't need a buff. But again, he's an attack scaling damage dealer. So in terms of like, he doesn't really benefit from HP scaling, defense scaling, or anything like that. But then his barrier is proportional to his health, so that there's a bit of a conflict for me in my experience here. He does get how many 30 40 50% barrier strength. That will be multiplied onto whatever base barrier mod he has. That will be definitely determined in the data mine as well, so well before that we get to test him, I think. But again, based on his max health, that's a bit unfortunate. I feel that he shouldn't be really built on that, but I guess now he could be. Again, he has the base stats there. Decent health, decent defense, not super high, but decent. He's got the speed, so maybe you can really offset the necessity of speed into more health, and then again, the free crit rate that he gets means that potentially more power there. This skill is a 4-turn skill, so it is kind of odd that it's flipped, that the S2 has the longer cooldown duration, and I do think that, I mean, it's pretty powerful for this to be any lower. He gets combat readiness, two debuff cleanse on himself and an ally of choice. That's pretty good, and then a barrier for more protection. So he has the invincibility, he has the barrier. Those are all decent mechanics for survival, especially if he can't self-heal. But you know, I think a lifesteal set really might be on the table for him as well, since he is attack scaling, and he's got invincibility, he's got barrier. I feel lifesteal could be there for him. We'll have to see. Vulnerability exposed is the S1. Attacks the enemy with a longsword, increase the critical hit chance of 50% when attacking, and the damage dealt increases when the target is buffed. We'll again need to see the difference in the scaling on the buff itself. So outside of a defense buff or a crit resistance buff, you're just gonna do more damage when they're buffed. And soul burn here is 10 souls and increases the damage dealt. Again, waiting to see the mods. But I think if his mods are just like it's good, I think he'll be decent to have. He'll be decent to have. I can see him used in the scenario that I've already painted, just lowering that HP right away, because yeah. Anyways, you guys get the point. So warrior exclusive artifact, pure white trust. So outside of him and outside of that one play scenario, I'm not convinced that this is going to be really that great. So after using a non-attack skill, increase the speed of the caster for 2 turns, and then increase the damage dealt by the next attack. A critical hit damage dealt by the next attack by 30%. So it is very important that they had to say that it has to be a critical hit damage dealt by 30%. So it wouldn't be like a stronger portrait. So if you miss crit somehow, I don't think you could miss your crit, but if you somehow miss your crit, you won't be doing that damage. So for example, if it's like a remnant violet, let's say for example, and you miss the Moonlight Dream Blade or what have you, artifact, you miss him, so you don't do the critical hit damage, you're going to be basically wasting that next attack damage, that 30% critical hit damage that you get there. You're going to be wasting that, but he does increase the speed for 2 turns. But outside of that, I don't think that this is really that great. So I think the play would be like, okay, since his S2 is the longer cooldown skill, use this 50% CR boost with a speed buff, with his artifact that is, and then you get more damage, and then you go into the S3, and then it's supposed to be like, oh, you do big injury damage, and so Arawi is gonna be like, you know, suppressed. That was the word I was gonna use. Suppressed. Bellion also, with his base speed, he could definitely get the turn with the 50% CR boost and then the increased damage though. But again, that's like a one-dimensional play, and I don't feel that's enough for him to be usable. So I personally I don't know about this artifact. Now outside of that, unless you're facing a Rimuru anyway, but because he has an invincibility buff on the S3, Rimuru is just going to be there as a problem. So I wouldn't be too weary of like trying out Rimuru's artifact, right? So Rimuru's artifact has it's basically Justice for All with some different buffs, and it happens before the turn, and it's warrior limited. So like, could it be used on him here? I'm not quite sure. It could, all those buffs could benefit him. He could potentially go into Draco Plate again, and Draco Plate seems to be very high value again recently, for the extra crit damage and the damage mitigation, the critical hit damage mitigation. And then on sets, specifically 119 speed, again, it's not slow at all, so speed set, speed boot will give him like really high speed. I'm not sure if that's the play. He's not going to survive long enough, not going to turn cycle long enough. So I think if you are using him, I think some form of life stealing might be beneficial. Heck, maybe even Sigurd's Scythe actually. Now I just thought about it. Sigurd's Scythe could be good here too. Again, if he has decent damage mods and he's already an attack scaling attacker, a damage dealer, then Sigurd's Scythe might be the play. You basically want him to live long enough to be able to land multiple S3s. But outside of that, if you're not convinced that, you know, that's what you need, I completely can see the point. I feel the crit chance that he has for both his S1, S2, the hit chance that he has is really that kind of bait. Oh, it's a violet counter. But he's not a limited hero, so just keep that in mind. I don't think that he's... I think on paper his skill set is fine. No RNG requirements. It's just what kind of stats can you get him? We'll have to see how people build them. I'm personally thinking right now, off the bat right now, I think a lifesteal is going to be my go-to. I'm going to keep him like in the mindset that he's a bruiser and not going to scale off that high base speed, and then use the crit rate as an advantage to make him a very, very strong lifesteal type of bruiser. I think that's going to be my way of using him if I get him. And so yeah, so that's my thoughts on Zahhak here. Again, I don't have the data mine, I don't have the damage mods, but once I get them, I will paste them into the YouTube video description box. So depends on when you watch it, it might be there, it might not. But anyways, that would be my initial thoughts video for Zahhak. And I'm gonna end this here. If you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server, follow me on Twitter, subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.